Anderson. I'm the Communications Director for the Indiana Democratic Party. And this is the sixth stop of our 2022 Town Hall Series. And with that, just thank you so much, everyone. Can we get... There we go. I cannot thank y'all enough for making time out of your busy schedules for this important conversation. Like I said, this is the sixth stop of the tour. We have had our candidates from the Democratic side crisscross the state. Last week we were in New Albany. The week before that we were in Columbus and Greenfield. We're going everywhere. And then we're so blessed to have our friends in the Libertarian Party here joining us today. You're going to get to know them as well. And this is truly a bipartisan town hall. Before we begin, I'm gonna be the bad cop here. Give the little rules of the road, just because we want this to be a productive, thoughtful, positive conversation. And so, with that, I have one simple request. If you don't like an answer to someone's answer for a policy or plan, do what my mother taught me, which is if you don't have anything nice to say, why don't you just hang out? Sit back and relax. Booing, we don't really want that here because we're adults. We are the adults in the room and at the table because we're the ones that actually want to get stuff done. Another thing, feel free to tweet, stream, whatever you want. We have the McDermott campaign live streaming this town hall right now. It's going to be online. I know the Wells campaign's doing something similar too. And I know our, the CENIAC campaign is doing it too. So everyone's live streaming it. So if you want to broadcast it, tweet about it, do your thing, we're all for that. Last thing, before I introduce our MC, as I've been pitching, we have a sheet out there for questions. Literally any questions fair game, y'all. We want to ask our candidates everything. So if a question comes up during the town hall that hasn't been asked yet, go write it down, flag me down. I'll get that piece of paper and give it to our MC. So, without anything else to do, hey folks that just got here, we have some seats right here. And without further ado, I want to introduce our MC. He has been our champion at the State House on the Senate side. He, honestly, my favorite part about knowing Senator Lannon, and as an LGBTQ person, by the way, happy Pride. Pride Month is a great month.
Thank you.
He stood up for us when RIPRA was getting passed, and he's the one that put his foot down and said, you know what, discrimination is wrong, this needs to stop, and I can forever thank him for that. So, and of course he's done so much else, but I'm biased, and I had to say that. So, without further ado, please give a hand for Senator Tim Lannon.
Thank you. Dude, that was really nice introduction. You said it exactly the way I wrote it. Good evening, everybody. Thank you for being here. This is a great crowd. We're off to a great start already. So thank you all for taking the time to be here. This is a town hall. So these folks are here to answer your questions. But before we start anything, would you please rise? We're going to do the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Okay, I think what we're going to do at the very beginning here, I know that we have some candidates who are here, other than the folks who are up here on the panel. So if you are a candidate for office this year, I'd love for you to have an opportunity just to stand, say who you are, and what you're running for, please. So, Tammy, I guess we'll start with you.
Okay, well, hello everybody. I'm Tammy Dixon Tatum, and I'm running for State Senate District 25. And I definitely would appreciate your support this November. So, thank you. Is that all I'm allowed to say, or no?
You want to say something else?
Okay, I promise I'll make it really, really quick. Just first of all, I'm running because I care. I care about people. I care about the community. I care about business and the environment. I'm also qualified. I've got 3 degrees. I've got a degree in telecommunications, a master's in legal studies, and a master's in government. And I also have the experience. I have executive level experience in government, in management, policy making, decision making, and leadership. So, like I said, I care and I'm qualified, and I would definitely like your support I've got one of the longest names on the ballot. Do not miss it, and please don't this November. Again, it's Tammy Dixon Tatum, and thank you.
Candidates here who want to stand and say, yeah, okay, so sure.
Hi, I'm Dawn Johnson, and I'm running for County Council District 1, which is the northern part of Madison County, including Chesterfield, west of Water Street. So I would appreciate your support. I am a public school teacher teaching in Alexandria, Indiana. I also formerly worked for Governor Evan Bayh, Senator Evan Bayh, as his assistant. So have experience at the state and federal level, and look forward to representing you at the county level. Thank you.
Hello, I'm Steve Geiser, and I'm running for County Commissioner, District 1, Southern part of Madison County, and I appreciate the votes.
Anybody else? Oh, yes, okay.
Hi, I'm Wendy Carter Hopkins. I'm running for the Madison County Recorder. I'm a licensed broker, a real estate broker in the city of Anderson over the last 30 years. I've been committed and dedicated to this community for over 30 years, and I'm looking forward to your support and your vote.
I'm Joe Spencer, run for Madison County Clerk. Been up in the courthouse for 17 years, clerk's office for 9, voter registration for 8. I have the experience. I'm ready for the job.
Okay, have we covered everybody who wants to say they're a candidate and what they're running for? Okay, good. All right, then we're going to get right into our panel. And it's my understanding the first order of business is that each of the people on the panel will have an opportunity to introduce themselves and have up to 2 minutes to make any statement they might want to. So I think we're just going to go right down the line, and let's start with you, Terry, and we'll go from there.
Good evening. My name is Terry Austin. I am currently serving as a state representative for House District 36. House District 36 includes the city of Anderson, the city of Chesterfield, and portions surrounding, well, Union Township, Markleville, and Adams Township. I am seeking re-election because I think the state of Indiana needs to have a serious direction change. As you know, there is a supermajority at the State House, and while Indiana may enjoy a terrific tax climate, right now our educational achievement is low in the state of Indiana. Our wages are much lower than the rest of the nation. Our economic recovery has been much slower than the rest of the nation. And the truth is, we have a long way to go if we want to build a brighter future for Hoosiers. Our healthcare costs are about a third higher. Our hospital costs are about a third higher. Drug costs are much higher in the state of Indiana, and we have more Hoosiers who quite honestly do not have health insurance. I've focused on healthcare costs during my time over the last 5 to 6 years because they are spiraling out of control, and people are making the choice between affording their medication, paying their rent, or buying food. I am asking for your support. I am a former public school teacher. I have taught at both the K-12 level and the college level. I have worked in county government, I have worked in municipal government, and now in state government. I am the mother of 2 grown sons. I've been married to my husband, Mike, for 40 years coming this December, and I've been a very active member of our community. I try to give back. My biggest part of my day is serving my constituents. I started out my day at 8 o'clock in this very building, talking to a group of ministers, and I'm here again tonight, ending up with constituents. I appreciate your support. I appreciate all of your questions. I look forward to the evening's exchange.
I'm Joey Cole. I'm a lifelong resident here in Madison County. I was hired at the Sheriff's Department in 1985. I was the first civilian jail officer there. I worked for a year, then I was moved up to merit officer into the patrol division. I later then was selected and chosen to be a DARE officer for Madison County, the first DARE officer we've had. I went around to the schools teaching the harmful effects of drugs and violence and guns and things of that nature. I've served 4 years on the county council. Presently, I am the chief deputy, where I have several responsibilities of overseeing the jail and taking care of the patrol division as well. So I'm running for sheriff because I like people, I care about people, I want to help people. There's things that I would like to be able to do to improve life here in Madison County, make people safe, and help those that need the help. So I really appreciate your support, your vote, and thank you for being here, and thank you for allowing me to be here and to address you. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Destiny Wells. I'm running for Indiana Secretary of State. You may have seen my little one running around, so it's been a lot on the campaign trail, crisscrossing Indiana. Tonight, my husband may be sticking a camera in your face. I'm sorry. Just let us know if you don't want to be on film. I am running for Indiana Secretary of State for a bevy of reasons. I'll start with the most important to me, and that is for my son who is running around here and making sure that we safeguard his future and all of our children's future by upholding the democratic process. I have 19 years. I still serve. I'm an Army Lieutenant Colonel in the Army Reserve. My husband also serves. We have over 40 years of service between the two of us. That's how we met. And in 2016, I found myself in Afghanistan 2 weeks before the election. And it changed my life. And so for the next 13 months, I served with NATO. And I tell people that the United States truly is the shining city on the hill if we keep it. Because when we are off kilter, it is felt and reverberated throughout the world. And so when I got home, I said, I think I want to do more beyond the uniform because I kind of feel what is going on and I know I need to. So I was a Deputy Attorney General for the state of Indiana. I defended the Department of Correction, spent a lot of time in prisons. My son's been in prison when he's still in the womb. And then moved over to the city of Indianapolis, Marion County. I've litigated from pothole to IMPD and all the things in between. And then during the civil unrest of 2020, I stayed home with my son and started to get involved politically and decided to run for Secretary of State. And I am doing that because there is a credible threat against elections in Indiana and across the U.S. It is the GOP strategy to undermine our elections, and we need to make sure that somebody who is professional and can be trusted with the keys is in that office. And so that's why I'm running. Thanks.
Hi, Madison County. Thanks for inviting me up. My name is Tom McDermott. I'm a Democratic nominee for U.S. Senate. Well, I'm the Democratic nominee. I don't know if I'm your nominee. I'm trying to sell myself still. I've been the mayor of Hammond for 18 years, 5 elections. When I took over, it was a Republican town, and nobody really calls it that anymore. I'm running for U.S. Senate because the Senate's broken. We got problems in America. The U.S. House passes good bills, and they go to the Senate, and they die because of the filibuster. I want to take a little bit of City Hall to Washington, D.C. When somebody comes to my office and says, Mayor, I got a problem with my neighbor, or with my street, or one of your employees was rude to me, I don't say, hey, before you get started, ma'am, who did you vote for in the last presidential election? I would get tossed out of office if I took that attitude where I said, I'm only going to help you if you're a Democrat. If you're a Republican, I'm just going to ignore you. That's what we allow to happen in Washington, D.C., and it's part of the reason America's in the shape it's in right now. And by the way, we invited Todd Young to this event. We invite him to every event. We invite all the local Republicans to every event, and I haven't seen one show yet. Why? Suddenly, when you raise your right hand and become a U.S. Senator, you don't have to talk to Hoosiers anymore? If I took that attitude to Hammond City Hall, there's no way I'd be around after 18 years. I don't care if you're rude to me. That's my job. People are rude to me all the time as mayor. I can handle it. We may not see eye to eye on national issues. It doesn't mean I'm your enemy. My dad voted for Trump. I don't understand it. And we have some awkward Thanksgiving conversations. Let me tell you, But the fact is, he's my dad and I love him, he loves me, we both want America to succeed.
That's right.
But why are we sending people to Washington, D.C. and just allowing them to kill all the good things that we're trying to do in this country? We got a problem in America. And the problem, in my opinion, starts in the Senate. And it starts with the filibuster. And we need to get rid of the filibuster and let the majority rule, just like it's supposed to be. You want to scour the Constitution and look for the word filibuster, you're not going to find it. But we're allowing this man-made mechanism to ruin our country so that we can't advance assault weapon bans. Sign me up. I want an assault weapon ban. I'm sick of watching kids get killed in schools, right? So we can't codify Roe versus Wade. 50 years of my whole life, that's been the law of the land. Now all of a sudden, no, we got the majority. Screw you. Why are we allowing this from our representatives in Washington, D.C.? We are their boss. But when you talk to Todd Young, you're not his boss. You don't matter to Todd Young unless you got $5,800 and you're willing to drop it, and then he'll talk to you. That's the only time he ever shows up where I live. So I tell you, he may have $6 million, and he does. That's blood money. $3 million of it came from the NRA. He may have $6 million, but I'm not going to shut up. I'm going to go across this state. I'm going to tell the story that needs to be told right now. Todd Young deserves to be fired. I'm the guy that's going to beat him in November. Thank you, Madison County.
Hi, I'm James Siniak, and I'm the Libertarian candidate for the U.S. Senate race. And I want you to look around this room. These are the Hoosiers and constituents that I want to represent. I saw young feet running by. I saw moms. I see fathers. I see people who want to make a change in Washington, D.C. And how we do that is conversations like this at town halls, and having access to our elected officials. It's exactly right that in Washington, D.C., they think they're above us, and they don't think they can have conversations with the everyday person. But we are the ones that elect them, and they need accountability. I'm running on 3 things for the U.S. Senate race. The first one is my vet care program. Our vet care program takes away the waste of the VA and gives the money directly to veterans it's similar to a health savings account. It's called a Veterans Personal Care Account. So what it does is it allows you freedom within your medical care. It allows you to go to whatever location is best and most convenient for you. So it gives you freedom within your medical, and it gives you more access to whatever medical needs you need. The second thing I'm running on is fiscal sanity. Todd Young is absolutely not fiscal responsible. And when we talk about inflation and the dinner, you see every dinner your prices are going up. You see the gas prices going up. You see so many things affecting your paycheck. Your money is valuable to you. Todd Young doesn't think so. He wants to spend it at a ridiculous rate, and he is the cause of inflation despite whatever he says. The third thing I'm running on, so we have fiscal sanity, we have vet care, and the third thing is going to be the Medical Freedom Act. So my medical freedom is that I don't believe that politicians should act as your physicians. On a national level, our politicians should not be making medical decisions for you. We saw a lot of control happen during COVID. We saw them lock down churches. We saw them lock down your communities, shut down small businesses, and all in the name of medical. And this is wrong. Our politicians cannot act as our physicians. They cannot dictate our lives and lock us down. So we're going to push back on that. Those are the 3 principles I'm running on. I want to thank you for coming out tonight, and I appreciate all the questions that are going to come in and the conversations that we're going to have over this. Thank you.
Hi there, Madison County. How are you all doing tonight? You guys okay?
Good, thank you.
Wake up a little bit because I'm going to sleep too. Anyways, my name is Janine Lee Lake, and I'm running for Congress in Indiana's 5th Congressional District. Some of you all have heard my name before because I've run twice before in the 6th District. I didn't actually move, but the GOP gerrymandered things a bit and kicked Muncie and Delaware County out of the 6th and into the 5th. So now we represent 6 counties, and I won all 6 counties in my primary, and I'm really, yes. I'm not sure that there's no woman in the state of Indiana that can say that she won in both districts, so I'm really happy and blessed that we were able to, go out there and get our message heard. From the very beginning, I got in kind of during a crazy season of my life. My dad, unfortunately, was sick and then subsequently passed away. My kids were kind of going through some stuff, but I thought, you know what?
we've just come through a pandemic. We've just come through something that was, in my opinion, science-based, so sorry, they're right there. But something that we were really toiling with, and I still had some unfinished business. And since I wasn't gonna run against Greg Pence again, Don, I thought, you know what, in the 5th district, there's a woman called Victoria Sparks. And she said the other day that in her country, that's what she said on, so yeah, I was listening. She said in her country, they're rude sometimes, basically. And she was deemed, I guess Politico said she was the meanest boss in America because of the turnover rate or whatever. And someone was asking her about it. She said, well, in our country, that's just how we do it. And I was thinking, well, what country are we on? Because I'm thinking that you're the U.S. Congresswoman, not from, she's from Ukraine and Russia.
Right.
But she's supposed to be representing us.
Right.
And quite honestly, Joe, we're here in America and we're trying to do things better. We're trying not to be bullies here. We're trying to actually affect change here. We're actually trying to bring economic growth and economic development into the 5th district so that people will come and do business with us. We don't need a person at the head at the top who can't get along with people. I'm a nice lady. I promise, I'm telling you what, I haven't been elected yet, but I want to represent each and every person that's here today. And most of all, you know who moved to the Hamilton County area a couple of years ago, Mike Pence, right?
Yeah.
So I ran against his brother in the 6th, and I didn't quite get it. But if I can get to the top and get those numbers on November the 8th, I will be Mike Pence's congresswoman. Yeah. And if it doesn't happen now, I see a little lady back there by the name of Tammy Dixon Tatum, who would also be his state senator. So I think just by virtue alone, it's kind of cool to see Mike Pence having to shake a bunch of black women's hands. Y'all be blessed today. Nice to see you.
All right, last but not least for intros. Good evening. My name is Jeff Maurer, M-A-U-R-E-R. I'm the Libertarian candidate for Secretary of State. So Destiny Wells and I are both seeking the same office. It was great to see so many people in the room who are running for office. And I imagine you have the same drive that I feel, the same pressure to look around and see that our world, our country, our community, our neighborhood, our neighbors are suffering because things aren't what they should be. We can see a better way, we can see a better path toward that result, but we're just not getting there. And so we understand that the other side of liberty is responsibility. Those two things go hand in hand, and that's the responsibility that we have to step forward as Americans, as Hoosiers, as denizens of Madison County, Hamilton County, any county, to step forward and do things right. And so that's what brings me to the Secretary of State's race. Because what I see, and I imagine what all of us see, is a very deeply flawed system, a very deeply flawed process. We have an election that is this black box. We don't know what goes into it. We're told that everything is right, everything is well, we should trust it. But there's no way, there's no proof either way. That's the problem. We have no way of knowing what's happening. Maybe it's right, maybe it's wrong. We just don't know. And that's the problem. So, blissfully, this is truly not a partisan, issue. This is a non-partisan process. As Americans, no matter what part of the political spectrum you're on, no matter which party you vote for, no matter which color shirt you wear, no matter what your political identity, we all agree to disagree through our elections. I'm going to repeat that. Our elections are the process through which we agree to disagree. And if we don't have that mechanism of dialogue, then we get violence. We've seen this firsthand in our lifetimes recently. And there's more to come if we can't get this right. So that's really what's driving this. And I'm looking for very simple, solutions-based processes that solve this problem. I'm not looking for magic, I'm not looking for policies. I just want to have elections that we can all see and be transparent and trust. Anybody ever share a cupcake or a donut? You cut, I choose, right? Very simple. There's no judges, everybody sees what's happening. And we're all aligned. And so the first, where I would like to start with elections is to give you a receipt, to give me a receipt. This is what I want. Libertarianism is very simply living the golden rule. Whatever I want for myself, I want for you too, and I hope vice versa. So I want a receipt to know that my vote was counted. Now, I want to make sure that that vote is absolutely secret. The sanctity of the secret ballot is paramount, so that's not going to get compromised. But I want to be able to have a receipt that I can go home and look up and know and look online to see that my vote is counted. So for anyone here who's ever bought a lottery ticket, you know you've got those winning numbers. Well, let's hope. You go home, you go on the website, you can punch it in. No. Imagine this: you paid $2 for a lottery ticket, and the clerk says, "If you win $2 billion, we'll call you. Trust us." That's a lot of trust, and we don't know. That's the problem. So I'm looking for very simple, solutions-based ways to move us forward, to give us the elections that will. Very good. Jeff Moore, Libertarian candidate for Secretary of State. Thank you.
Thank you all, candidates, and we're going to move it right into the question aspect of the town hall this evening. We've got quite a few questions, and we've got quite a few candidates. So I'm going to ask the candidates. Here's the way we're going to do this. I'm going to direct the question to just one candidate to begin, and I'm going to ask that you try to hold your comments to about a minute and a half if you can, because we have to get through as many of these as we possibly can. So try. Actually, that's a virtue that you need to have, as you know, as good candidates. Be brief if you can. Get the information out. So that's the way we're going to do it. After that first person has addressed the question, any other candidate, if you want to address it, just hold up your hand. I'll call on you, and you can have your minute and a half, not more, please. And the first question, I'm going to actually direct to you, Jeff, again, okay? And this is a question, it's from Eliza Carmack, I believe it is. And the question is this: what would you do to protect Medicare and Social Security?
Eliza, is Eliza here? Or is this who? Okay. Hi. So, Secretary of State's office regrettably does not have much purview over Medicare and Social Security. But what I can say is that whatever your views and whichever candidates or parties best represent that, I want to make sure that your opportunity to elect them and see them get elected to office and to coordinate with other voters, with other volunteers, and to make sure that your votes count, that's my responsibility. As I said very blissfully, this is not a policy-based office. This is about making sure that our process works, and then we can all trust it. So we can have a much longer conversation outside of this forum about what those policies are for that issue. But ultimately, as Secretary of State, it's just about making sure that you have the opportunity to see your candidates and your elected officials represent you.
Thank you. Anybody else want to address that issue of Medicare and Social Security? Okay.
30 seconds. I was just driving here today. It's a 3-hour drive from Hammond. And on the way here, listening to MSNBC, and they indicated that Social Security disability, because of our booming economy, is good for the next 75 years. I thought that was good news. The bad news I heard is Social Security, the trust fund itself, is only good for the next 12 years. And then I did quick math and realized I don't qualify for Social Security if it keeps going in this direction. And it's a promise that we made with the government that we were going to that the government was going to leave their hands off that money and make sure it was there when you needed it, when you retire. And I think the government has to live with that promise. We made a deal, and you upheld your end of the bargain, and it's up to the elected officials in Washington to uphold their end of the bargain so that that trust fund is solvent for all of our lifetimes. So thank you.
So with Social Security, we keep kicking the can down the road saying, we'll just figure it out as we go. And it's not working. There's solutions out there, and one of them is the Cato 6.2% plan. So what it does for those like myself and anybody, like he mentioned, that isn't going to get Social Security if we keep kicking the can down the road. There's a plan. There's a 6.2% plan. You can opt out of Social Security currently, get that money for your own retirement plan, and then the other 6.2 still fulfills any obligations to those who have medical needs, and also fulfills anything that of those who are already retired. So it still allows for the care that everybody needs, but it also allows for solutions in the future.
Thank you.
One of the things I think is important to note, that 56% of people that are on Social Security are women. And they're women, their husbands have some of their husbands have died, some of them are in positions where they rely on Social Security. They rely on Social Security for their very existence. If Social Security isn't here for those women, what are they going to do? We learned that, during the pandemic, women You know, we're in the gun for everything. We have to take care of our families, we have to take care of our children, we have to take care of our grandchildren. We have to make sure that every single person that we're voting for and putting in office is a person that will fight for Social Security and Medicare. Because women are the ones that lead us, I mean, and men too. But I'm just saying, I think it's very important and very vital to know those statistics, that women, especially elderly women, are the ones that really need Social Security in our life.
Any other candidate wish to address that question? If not, I'm gonna move on to the next question. And I'm gonna direct this next question to you, Destiny, because here's the question, and then, of course, anybody else can chime in after that. The question comes from Debbie Sears, who's here from Elwood, and she asked, what women's issues are you pushing for this year?
Oh, that's a big question this year. It's like the year of women because of everything that's happening. So let's be upfront. I'm running for Secretary of State. Do I influence policy that has to do with women? No, but I safeguard the election process so that we can truly be a representative democracy. Because the majority of Hoosiers don't want a 100% abortion ban. They don't want a first trimester abortion ban. They have an answer maybe somewhere in between, but the thing is that the policies that are being proposed to take place of what will happen when Dobbs comes out in a couple weeks, Dobbs that will roll back Roe v. Wade and get rid of those protections that we've had for years, what is going to happen is that we are going to need solutions that we are not capable of providing. Because let me frame it out this way. So when Dobbs comes out, Indiana doesn't have a trigger law. So up front, that's my big women's issue this year is women's reproductive freedom. Indiana doesn't have a trigger law, and the legislature wants to come back into session to deal with abortion. They've already on International Women's Day. That's how they message. On International Women's Day, they put out a message that is what they intended to do. And so, because of that, they need the governor to call them back into special session. And I tell people, do you realize that the health of women rests on the political ambitions of one man? Mm-hmm. Because it is what Governor Holcomb wants to do in 2024 when he runs for Senate, which he may, and it looks like he wants to. It's how he builds his record out to make him competitive against whomever he's going to run against. Mm-hmm. And so that is not a representative democracy. That is a democracy completely on its head.
You got 90 seconds.
So that is my issue this year.
Any other candidate wish to address that question, which is what women's issues are you pushing for this year? Yes?
I'll just chime in. So Destiny, this is exactly where we might agree, and the Secretary of State's office does not have its policy-based drive for women's issues or many other issues. But I just want to talk a minute from the libertarian perspective, more broadly, which is we see every person, every human being as equal. That's a fundamental truth of the way that we see our world. Doesn't matter gender, identity, color, background, ethnicity, religion. We see you as equal. And we want government to see you and treat you as exact equals. And that's why the Secretary of State's office is so fundamental to the libertarian view, because it ensures exact equality in your voice, in your vote. When we see things like gerrymandering, when we see things like ghost voting and other fraudulent efforts in the election process, that's diluting your voice. That's hurting you as a woman, that's hurting you as a man, that's hurting you as a religion, as a color, as an ethnicity, as anything, because it undermines your voice and your vote. And so having the integrity of the process is the surest way to make sure that you're treated as equal and that your issues are being fully and equally addressed in our democracy.
I just want to say, first of all, it's appalling to me, Sheila, that we're actually really talking about overturning Roe versus Wade. It's been the law of the land for 50 years, over 50 years, I believe. Just coming up on 50 years. Back then, the Supreme Court decided that a woman should be responsible for her own body. The idea that we're now in 2022 and we're talking about whether or not a woman is still responsible for her own body and her own health decisions is absolutely appalling to me. And it should be appalling to you. The other day, and I think right now it's over 50% of support for Roe versus Wade. So I think the Democrats, we have that on our side. The other day I was talking to a Republican farmer who's been farming for 60 years in North County. Wonderful guy. He was telling me about all the things that he didn't like about the Democratic Party. But you know what he said? He told me, he said, you know what? He said, you know, you and I have a lot of differences, Janine. One thing we definitely agree on, and I was telling him during the other day, my chin hit the floor. He said, I will always believe that a woman has a right to choose. And I was really shocked by that. I didn't know he would, you know. And I asked him, I said, well, what do you think? And he said, well, he's like, you know, that's not necessarily what I would hope for my family, my children, my grandchildren. He said, but I just don't think that it's the government's decision to make those, you know, to make those decisions for women. That should be between her family, and her doctor. And so I think that that's something that I will always carry with me. Some of you have heard my personal story, and you can look on my webpage and find out more about that. But you know, I'm a person of faith, but I believe that God gives us all choice. We're people that, you know, every day we can wake up and we can decide whether and not anything about, you know, our free will and how we go about the day. I believe in my heart that most Americans will continue to support Roe versus Wade, and I will do everything I can to stand up for it.
So I'm a behavioral therapist, and if you know anything about behavioral therapy, it's a field that's dominated by females. So I work with about 90% females. And my coworker, her name is Madison, she comes up to me and she's like, what are you going to do for women's rights? And she herself, she's gay, she's a woman, and she's an advocate for rights. And so this is what I want to make important. It's more than just the abortion issue. It's more than just one topic. There's so many things that we affect. So it's the communication that we open up with our constituents. It's how we listen and how we understand each other. When it comes to specifically the Roe versus Wade, I absolutely go back to my position that your politicians should not act as physicians. And this is not dismissing science at all. This is the fact that there's very real decisions that affect your health that politicians should just stay out of. And Roe versus Wade being one of those. On the national level, they should have no say in your medical care. So absolutely, when we talk about women and women's rights, we need to have those conversations. We need to make sure that everybody feels valued and heard. And I definitely feel that I can represent all my constituents, including women at the federal level.
Anybody else care to address this particular issue? If not, we'll move on to the next question.
Can I just clarify something?
Yes.
I just want to clarify something that was said earlier. Let me just make it perfectly clear. The General Assembly as a whole does not want to call itself back into session. There's only a certain number of people who want to call themselves back into session. That would be the supermajority. They are the ones who wrote the letter to the governor and asked to be called back into session. Certainly it was not the Democratic caucus, either in the Senate or the House. We would be very happy not to go back into session to deal with this issue, but we know that whether it's in July or in January, it's likely to happen. I will also tell you that Indiana is one of the most restrictive states in terms of reproductive rights already. We've enacted more restrictions on a woman's right to terminate a pregnancy than many other states across the nation. So that's where we are already, and we only, our next step is either a total ban or maybe there will be some exceptions, but I have no idea what to predict at this point. And I will also say that because of the lawsuit that was filed, and a bill that was actually filed or passed earlier or last year, the General Assembly may, because of the Supreme Court ruling, be able to call itself back into session. We don't know how that ruling is going to come out yet. So if the governor doesn't call us back and the Supreme Court says, General Assembly, you may be able to call yourself back into session, we don't know what's going to happen yet. So I just want to clarify that for everybody.
Thank you, Terry. Anybody else want to address this particular issue? All right, let's move on to the next question. Actually, it's directed to you, Terry.
Okay.
At least to start us off. This last session, there was, or the special session, there was an overriding of a bill, overriding of the governor's veto of a bill which dealt with transgender athletes, transgender women athletes. And so the question here basically just asks for comments about that particular issue and thoughts on it.
I'll be happy to address that. Should I stand up? So, yes, the governor vetoed, was it 1041? I think 1041. And I believe the governor was correct in his reasoning. He wrote a letter to the General Assembly explaining his veto. The bill, the legislation only addressed women who, or men who choose to participate in sports after going through the transgender process. I will tell you that the IHSAA already has a process to address this issue. There is not a case in Indiana at this point, and that it is already a case or a lawsuit has already been filed. We were told that it would be filed because it doesn't protect both sexes. And if you're not going to protect both sexes, then why pass the bill at all? It was, as many people described, a solution in search of a problem. And so it was a bipartisan vote on both sides. When I say both sides, I mean both chambers. Many Senate Republicans and Democrats voted against it, and the same thing on the House side. Several Republicans and Democrats, all the Democrats voted against it. So it's going to end up, it is in the courts at this point. We'll see what happens, whether there's an injunction filed or not, we don't know. But there are no cases pending or even being considered at this point in Indiana. When I say no cases, no individuals being involved in sports at this point. So yet again, we are wasting taxpayer dollars fighting in the courts on an issue that doesn't even exist.
Thank you, Terry.
I want to draw attention to the fact that when that, on technical sessions day, what wasn't spoken about, could have, I mean, let's just face it, when we want to talk about something, the supermajority, we end up talking about it. So that day we didn't talk about gas tax. We talked about transgender girls. Do we see a theme? Girls, women, we are just pulling the thread on privacy rights so that anybody who can be othered is going to have lesser rights than what the Republican supermajority wants to project that they're protecting, and that is the white Christian population. And I say that to you as a white Christian. And so I just want to draw that out. Let Kids Play was that day, and I took my 10-year-old, and we talked about it. Do we go because something could happen? There could be some counter protests. We put a plan together, talked to his mom. I'm his stepmom, and we went. And that kid clapped so hard when a transgender woman got up and said, a very skilled attorney said, we should not be bullying kids. And I looked over at my kid, it's just clapping so hard. It's a black and white issue for kids. What are we doing as adults?
Anybody else care to address that issue? Not? Okay. This is an interesting question. It comes from Charles Washington. I'm asked it directed to James. And the question is, can you talk about the computer chip shortage? Okay? Any thoughts on that? I think maybe we're talking generally not on the computer chip shortage, maybe the whole supply chains.
There's a shortage with just about everything, including computer chips, and there's a lot of battles with China and how we get the computer chips and additionally the technology behind it and the resources used for that. But really what it comes down to is a supply and demand issue. And there's a lot of things with the supply and demand that we can immediately fix.
Todd Young will point to inflation and say it's all supply and demand. If that's the case, there are solutions immediately, like the Jones Act. We could repeal the Jones Act, and it could immediately help us with supply and demand. We could also make immigration a little bit easier, allow people to come in and work. This is something that's very pro-libertarian, but it's also my philosophy. Why is it so hard to come into America and live the American dream? I've come from a family of immigrants on both sides. About 3 generations ago, both sides came over. I believe in the American dream for immigrants. Additionally to this, inflation isn't just supply and demand, it's also how we're printing the money at the Fed level. So there's a lot of issues, specifically with the computer chips. It's a very real issue, but it all comes down to how do we get more supply? How do we make things more in America? Let's legalize immigration and allow more people to come in.
I agree with you. First off, on the supply, the chip shortage, there's a shortage on a lot of things right now. We were in lockdown for a year plus, and then we came out. While we were in the lockdown, we were ordering, and then we came out, we started consuming even more. So we have manpower shortages right now, we have gas shortages, we have inflation, chip shortages, baby food shortages, you know. So the fact is, inflation isn't just an American problem either. If you listen to my opponent, Todd Young talks about how the Biden administration is a failure because of the inflation going on in America. This is a worldwide problem right now. I mean, it's very naive just to look at it from our perspective. It's very selfish, actually. When you look at the price of gas in the European Union right now, it's right around $10 a gallon. That's not wonderful either. But it's not an American problem. It's a worldwide problem. Besides the shortages we're facing with gas, we're also, you know, in the middle of what could turn into World War III right now in Ukraine with Russia right now, and that doesn't help the price of gas either. So the fact is, I think that it's easy for a guy like Todd Young, who's been in Washington, D.C. for 12 years, to blame everything on Biden, but it's not really being a leader. If I was in the U.S. Senate right now and I had a chance to do something about the price of gas, I would do it. Like right here in Indiana. Right now in Indiana, we can lower the price of gas 74 cents. We have one of the highest state tax rates in the country right now. Who wouldn't take an extra 74 cents lower on their gas bills right now, right? Right? Just because Todd Young's in the U.S. Senate doesn't mean he can't talk to the supermajority, he can't talk to the governor, he can't talk to his allies and say, hey, let's give Hoosiers a break right now. But he doesn't. Todd Young wants you to hurt right now. He wants you to pay high gases. He wants you to have inflation so that he can blame it on Biden and cruise to re-election, but we're not going to let him do that. It's time to fire Todd Young, guys.
Any other candidate want to address the issue of the chip shortage or any other shortages? Okay, great. We'll move on to the next question. It's sort of a, it deals again with Social Security and Medicare, but it's in a particular fashion. This comes from Jim James. And Jim's question is, the Republican Party wants to sunset Social Security and Medicare, get rid of them in 5 years. What is your position on this? And Mayor, this is directed to you too. Has to do with the sunset, litigants about Social Security.
I'm interested in following through on the promise the American government made with the workers when we entered into this social contract. I'm just interested in following through with that. I'm interested in having the politicians in Washington, D.C. keeping their hands off it, but I'm also open-minded to realizing that maybe we do need to make some slight changes so that it could last longer. Like, does it make sense if you're a billionaire and you're receiving Social Security checks? No. Does that help lowering the lifespan of the Social Security trust? Probably. So I think there's common sense solutions we can make to extend the life, but at the same time, I'm very interested in making sure that the government follows through with the promise it made with you, the American worker.
So again, this goes back to my KO 6.2% plan. We all know there's an issue with Social Security. We can all talk about the issue with Social Security, but we need real solutions. And the KO 6.2% plan is just that. It's an actual solution. We realize that with the government, they've actually corrupted Social Security. That's why it's not going to be available to many people and many individuals if we continue down the path we're at. The 6.2 gives you freedom now to be able to invest in your future, as well as taking care of those who are already obligated to, right? So it doesn't leave anybody behind. It still fills that obligation, and it still allows for us to transition into a much better method. So we always have to come to the table with solutions. I believe the Cato 6.2% plan is just that on Social Security.
Anyone else care to address that particular question? Okay, this next question comes from Sheila McPherson, who's here. And Sheila is directing, I'm gonna direct this question to Terry Austin, and this is about education. So the question is simply, do you have any ideas in particular regarding our schools? Plans or ideas that you think the General Assembly perhaps should be looking at when it comes to education?
How long do I have?
You have 90 seconds, and I'm sure you can do it in 90 seconds.
Well, let me just say this. We have thrown more changes at our schools and our teachers over the last 10 years than I think any other, I don't want to say industry, than any other sector under state government control. Teachers are reeling from the changes that have been thrown their way. Tests have been changed every couple, 3 years. I mean, I know this because I see the teachers' heads shaking in this room. The accountability systems have been changed. The number of pathways to different types of schools outside of school, public school control. We have aside from vouchers and public school choice, we now have 5 or 6 different types of schools. Freeway schools, there's transformation zone schools, there's innovation network schools, all of these, and there's more than that. I'm just talking off the top of my head. And every one of those comes with a way that they have their own set of rules and ways that they don't even have to follow the rules. Yet our public schools and public school corporations are still held to the same types of rules, regulations, reporting that they've always been. And my question is this. I always learned what was good for the goose is good for the gander. If we think that loosening the rules and the regulations are going to improve student achievement, which by the way, 10 years of research have told us we're not moving the needle. In fact, it's going the other way, which is why the major corporations are so worried about filling the talent void. They can't find the talent they need to fill their jobs. Why are we not doing that for our public schools? I think what we need to do is call a truce and let teachers teach. Let's focus on making sure we're adequately funding our schools. Let's raise the pay for teachers. Giving them a one-time bump in salary like we did last year in the budget is great, but that's not enough. We need to be serious about funding career and technical education. Yes, not every kid wants to go to college, but I guarantee you every kid is going to need at least 2 years of post-secondary in order to make a decent living outside of a 12th grade education. They're just not going to make it if they don't. And we need to actually fund higher education because they've been cut, believe it or not, just about as much as K-12 education has. Kids are staggering under college debt right now. They're staggering under it. If I told you the figure, it's like in the trillions of what kids carry right now in college debt. We need more kids to go to college. It's not either or. Kids need a pathway to go into the skilled trades and to go into some of the other areas where they can earn a decent living, and more kids have got to go to college too. Oh, sorry, Tim.
Anybody else care?
Yes, as a behavioral therapist, I had the honor and privilege of working with a teacher all year while I was adjusting the kids to the school system. As well as my mother's a teacher, her favorite quote is, education is not the filling of a bucket, but the lighting of a fire. And it's true, our education is really important. When we look at it from a federal level, we understand that your school it gets supported between about 6 to 8% of its budget. But what happens is, to comply with federal regulations, we actually the schools often end up spending more than that just to comply with those regulations. So from a federal perspective, what we're doing is we're having so much red tape that it doesn't allow teachers to get the resources they need. What would best serve Hoosiers and Hoosier teachers is to give that money back to the teachers directly and skip the whole federal bureaucracy and the red tape there and allow for more funding for teachers so that we can have better education.
We're ready to move on. Anybody else want to comment on that question? Yeah, okay, Janine?
I just never understood why teachers actually vote for those politicians. I really don't. I was just writing down some of the things. I mean, they're historically we're dead last in teacher pay. I've been for years and years and years, decades and decades and decades. These teachers are the same teachers that are being asked to pay for their own school supplies. Dawn, you know that. Every single year, right, to decorate the classrooms. They pay for students who sometimes are coming to the classrooms and are poor and don't have pens and pencils. They're seeing cut after cut after cut in every educational realm, from K through 12. I think we need to, as Democrats, we need to get out there and really start hitting those 16,000 teachers that came to the State House years ago and held up those red for ed signs. We need to go after them. I'm doing that during this next 6 months before the campaign on November 8th. We're going to go to all the different counties, and we're going to just meet with teacher organizations, because we need to let them know we're the party that supports them. We're the ones that want to give them higher rates. We're the ones that want to compel the governor to let loose of some of that $6 billion deficit and pay for things that really matter to this state and these kids and their parents.
Okay, I'm gonna move on. And actually, Joe, this is a question I'm gonna direct just to you and you alone, because here's the question. It comes from Sheila again. And it is, what improvement to our sheriff's office are you planning, or do you have in mind?
First of all, we need to increase our diversity in our jails. And I've been working on that. I've met with pastors over on the west side of Anderson. I've met with some other officials to try to get more people into our facility for working. That makes things a little more equal, make things a little more fair. And I want to continue and improve our mental health issues that we deal with every day in our facility. We have just an awful problem with addictions and mental health issues. I want to be able to continue and improve those programs, get more therapists in to our facility, and be able to help with those people that are suffering, so they can be able to cope. And once they leave our facility, they can go elsewhere and be able to continue to get the help that they need. There's a lot of people there in our facility that can be really good members to our society if they have a chance and they have the right people, supporting them. I also, I'm very proactive in our schools as far as safety. This is something that, kind of messes with my heart. We know about the shootings that's taken place, and just pre-COVID, I was able to have a meeting with all the superintendents in our county to get together and try to work on things to get things going for safety for our students in schools, the teachers, and all the employees that are there. Folks, I want to tell you, it's not a matter of if something's going to happen. It's a win. It's a win. And we need to come together, and we need to do the right thing, and we need to support our schools, we need to support our teachers, and the administrations that keep people safe. I think those are some of the most important issues that we have. There's a few places that everybody should be able to feel safe outside of their home, and that is their school and their church. And I'm very proactive in that. That's something that really needs to be looked at, that it needs to be addressed, and it needs to aggressively be pursued. So, thank you.
I think one of the reasons I'm a tough candidate for Todd Young, part of it being a veteran. I see the gentleman wearing his war veteran. Thank you for your service. The other is I've been running a police department for the past 18 years in the city of Hammond. We have 210 police officers, and I'm a pro-police officer mayor. My officers, thank you, which means when you're tested and the officer needs you to have their back. Obviously, if the officer breaks the law, the legal system takes care of that. Like, you know, when George Floyd was murdered, the legal system is taking care of that, and George Floyd was murdered. You know, just because you're wearing a badge doesn't mean everything you do is legal. We have to understand that people cross the line, and when officers cross the line, you gotta let the legal system take care of it. But I found, quite frankly, I think when we talk to people in law enforcement, they thought in 2020 the Democratic Party didn't have their back. And we need to fix that. Because my constituents in Hammond love the police department. And if they look at our party as a party that doesn't support police officers, we're less inclined to get their votes. And if we can't win elections, we can't enact all these great policies that we want to enact. It's about winning in November, right?
Yes.
In Hammond, my next door neighbor is the south side of Chicago. And it's the baddest part of town, for those of you that don't know the Jim Croce song, right? South side of Chicago is the baddest part of town. Anyway, we enact technology that helps our police officers cope every day. Diversity is huge, by the way. Our police department looks like our city. It's a very diverse city. But everywhere from having the officers, every one of my police officers has body cam. We were one of the first cities in the state that did that. We have an LPR camera system that tracks license plates that come in and out of our city and helps our detectives close cases. We have over a 90% closure rate on violent crime cases because of these tools that we've enacted. We need our candidates to look like we want to support the law enforcement, not just to look like it, to support the law enforcement community and get their votes. And the way to do that is to work with law enforcement. And when officers, unfortunately, do cross the line, which happens from time to time, we got to make sure that the legal system takes care of that problem. Thank you.
Thank you.
I want to say, Democrats do need to rehabilitate some of the bad messaging, right, that defund the police. And so I just want to testify that also as a Democrat, I've defended the Marion County Sheriff's Department. I've seen the mental health issues in the population. And when I saw the mental health issues in the Department of Correction, we need to think creatively. We need more wraparound services. We need to look at communities that we put prisons into where the entire community thrives around that prison because the economy is not doing well without it. There are so many complex issues that I really think Democrats, if elected and when elected, will look at these issues in a different way. And so we have to make sure that we message that and we let the public know that these are our initiatives and what we want to take care of.
We've got about 20 minutes. I think we're hoping to wrap up around 8 o'clock. We can. There's a couple of real important issues here that I want to address. And so I'm going to move on to these. The first one I'm going to actually address to you, Destiny, hoping that other people will chime in as well. I'm going to sort of combine two questions here that we have. The first one comes from, it's just Drew.
I did it. Sorry, y'all. I did it.
I also have one from Owen from Fishers.
He stepped out.
Oh, he stepped out? Oh, okay. Well, then here's the question. I'm going to read both of them in a minute. So what are your plans to protect the Hoosiers' right to vote? And then the second one is, how are you going to ensure a free and fair election for Hoosiers? Essentially the same question. Start with you.
So let's look at some numbers to put it in reality. 1.6 million registered Hoosiers in 2020, when it was Biden versus Trump and the stakes were so high, didn't vote. 1.6 million. But if you hear the Secretary of State for the state of Indiana, she'll say, we are the model state for elections. We have accessible elections. We have safe elections, secure elections. If we had all that, we would not be 46th in the nation in voter turnout. We are at the bottom. Hoosiers don't vote. I tell people we're not a red state or a blue state. We are a purple state with a turnout problem. Right? And I laid that directly at the feet of Republicans who have had the Secretary of State's office for the last 30 years. The last 30 years. We need to change where our initiatives are. We need to get out the vote. We need to make Hoosiers feel like their voice is heard. And that is by making sure that, yes, we have accessible elections, but I'm here to preach about secure elections. Because I deployed to the Afghanistan theater with the Army Intelligence and Security Command, and I know a couple things about security. And so I'm ready to call their bluff. I'm ready to come to the table and push back on a Republican supermajority, push back on a Republican governor until 2024, and make sure that we are not talking out both sides of our mouth. I don't want to hear about 15 different types of audit post-election. Stop lying. Stop lying to the people. That is what is going on, and I will speak the truth.
So naturally, I also have some thoughts on this. Agree with everything you said here. The idea is that our votes, our voices are being trampled upon by a process that's designed to suppress us. So how do we claim that back? First step is something that we can all have greater faith in, that's the receipt. I spoke about that in the church. I want you to have a receipt for your vote, so that way you can see that your vote was counted. We have no question about that. There are two more components that are really the next steps forward. The second component is recall, referenda, and ballot initiatives. These are truly tools of the people. We, the people, have the power. Not our government, not our parties, we, the people. And recall is the surest way to make sure that our elected officials, whichever party, however they got into office, whether they're appointed, like our current incumbent, or whether they were duly elected, we have the power to recall. Not next year, not 4 years from now, not 6 years from now in the case of the senatorial candidate, but right now. That gives us power. That puts power back in our hands. Recall is so essential to making sure that our elected officials answer to us. It's not about having $1,500 to go in for a check to speak with your elected representative. It's saying, I'm going to pull you out of office right now with just this sheet of signatures. Recall is essential. Ballot initiatives, referenda, this is how we, as Hoosiers, choose our society and choose our way of life. We have this process for our school systems. We can choose to invest additional funds in our schools. Referenda, that's very common throughout Indiana. There's so much more that we can do with referenda. The third component is audit. I won't go into this in too much detail, but our audit process is a joke, and that's a kind name for it. We maybe audit 5 counties. I think for the 2020 election, we haven't yet released all the audits yet. We certify elections that night or within days, weeks even, and with that, we haven't audited them. We certify an election before we audit it. That's insane. How do we know what's in it? We certify it, but we don't know what's in it. So we need to improve our auditing process. We need to audit all of our counties. We need to have greater auditing. We need to audit not just the votes that were cast, but we need to audit all votes. And right now in Indiana, 60% of all votes cast are electronic only. There is zero paper backup, nothing whatsoever. Your word against theirs. Imagine you get pulled over for a speeding ticket, and the officer says you're doing 1,000 miles an hour. Was I? Probably not. My car, I go fast, not that fast. But there's no way to prove it. There's nothing to say, show me your records. And you have no record of your own. And that's where our system fails us. So to be able to implement a print receipt, recalls, and a trustworthy, usable, meaningful audit process, that's going to put tools back in our hands. That's going to secure your voice and your vote.
Thank you. Any other candidates address the issue of election security? If not, I'll move on to the next question.
We do just need to have a national holiday for elections. I just want to say that. Yes.
Okay. All right. I'm going to read the next 2 questions. They're related. They're important questions. The first one comes from Julon Harris, who's here. Julon, thank you for being here. And her comment and question is this: racism is illegal, but thriving. It's the reason for sales of AK-47s, poverty and inflation, and COVID. They're all wars on poor and black people. Corporations have millions and billions of profits. Marijuana is harmless, and we know it, and using it to lock up blacks and poor. Now the second question coming from Angie Strickler is as follows. As elected officials, decision makers, creators of policy, how will you incorporate racial equality into the decisions you make and the policies that you create? This is actually directed, well,
Excuse me, please. I really didn't have a question per se, as more as I wanted to express 2 minutes and say what I'd like to say. I'm gonna humble myself because I want to be heard and want to be respected for what I'm saying. So, as it says, racism, it seems to be a policy, and it's a global policy. Black people especially are discriminated against. It's illegal, but it's thriving. It is the reason why the government has allowed the military sales of weapons, because they're expecting a racial war. So they want to shoot us down as many as possible, as quickly as possible. If you know another reason, please let me know. And corporations have billions of dollars in profits. So there's no need for inflation other than, like I said, and corporate and government have to work together. So the corporations are raising prices at the time when they have record profits. They get profits of millions and billions quarterly, not annually, quarterly. And
Devon, I want the candidates to react to what you're saying here, so let's wrap that up.
I want to be heard. Because I am a black person. I haven't been here 18 years, I've been here 60 plus years. And it's like the guy said, it's Groundhog Day. Every day is racial discrimination. Every day, all the time. Again, COVID is the war on black people. Poverty is the war on black people. Inflation is the war on black people. And I didn't write everything down like I wanted to, but in terms of the drug situation, for the people who did not addict themselves recreationally, then the government comes in with opioids. You go to the doctor, and that's how some people become addicted.
Thank you very much, but I do want to allow the candidates to react to what you said here. So we've heard your statement. Mayor, did you want to go ahead and make
So this is just what you were saying, that people have to pay in order to speak.
No.
So again,
But we're here for a town hall meeting, and the candidates need to be heard. So let's let the candidates stop. So Mayor,
let me have 40 seconds.
you've had more than that, Giovanna. Please wrap up in 15 seconds, please.
Exactly. The things that you all are saying as candidates are the reason why people aren't voting. I haven't heard anybody say anything that is going to catapult us into the future, anything that is reasonable, anything that is logical, anything that is going to make society better. This is why people don't vote, because we're not getting anything, and we understand that.
Well, let's give them a chance to talk, and maybe you'll hear something. So, okay, thank you, Judelon. Thank you very much. Mayor, you've got the floor at this time.
The populace forward like we should. You're too busy trying to hinder people.
My city, Hammond, is a diverse. I say it's the most diverse city in Indiana. 45% Caucasian population, 25% African American population, 30% Hispanic population, and my job is to represent that city, that very diverse city with very diverse interests. We go to different churches on Sunday. The thing that I've been able to do is do my best to be respectful of everybody, to make sure things like my city workforce looks like my city, to make sure my police department looks like my city. Even when we have a festival, we have a 5-day festival, and we make sure that every demographic group that lives in my city has a night or two that they can go to. Race is a problem in America. I agree with you. I got COVID. I'm a Caucasian, by the way. I just got over it.
Businesses do not
Ma'am,
represent.
I don't want to debate you, ma'am. I didn't come here to debate you. I agree with you, actually. I was one of these people in 2008 when Barack Obama was elected president of the United States. I was so hopeful. I was like, we made it. We got over this hump. We elected an African American to be the president of the United States, and I was so naive to think that we finally turned that ugly corner and we're going to start making things better. And here we are. Some would argue even worse than we were before. And it's a problem, and we're living with the sins of our past. And when I say the sins of our past, is how our country first started, and it's time for us to get over it. And quite frankly, I know I'm over it, and I know most of the people in my generation are over it, but when I look at the young kids, I have 4 kids. Okay? And my kids don't see race. And I think that's so wonderful. They don't see LGBTQ status. They don't see anything like that. They just want to get along and not get killed when they go to school and not get killed when they're trick-or-treating. That's what they want, man. And I agree with you. It's very frustrating what's going on in our country right now. And I live in a diverse city, and I see and I hear what you're saying, man. But I'm not your enemy. I'm trying to make things better. I may be a different color than you, man, but I'm fighting the same fight you're fighting because that's where I live. I live in a very diverse community, and it's an important issue, and I agree with you, man, but I think that, you know, maybe you should give a few more hugs instead of throwing a few more punches on this issue, because a lot of us are seeing the world the same way, man. So, thank you.
No, Juwan, I think you have very many valid points. And so, with the Secretary of State's office, it's been a question of how do we get people to want to vote. And so, I was with a group of women a couple of weekends ago, and they pulled me aside and they leveled with me. There are Democratic women, there were women from Anderson, Fort Wayne, South Bend, Gary, and Evansville. And they said, don't show up in our community at the 11th hour telling us how we need to vote to help ourselves, because we see straight through that. And we know that you need our vote to get you into office. So what are you going to do about it? And so I've been talking to them over the last couple weeks, and it seems a very momentous task to get into communities, be authentic, do the outreach, collaborate, listen to them, and find out what we can do to help them. I think it's a very real problem. And I think if any party, I'm going to get a little partisan here, if any party is going to do it, it's going to be the Democratic Party. But we have to be responsible, and we have to make sure that it is a year-round effort, and it is not us just showing up at during election season in your town saying all the great ideas we have. So I appreciate you sharing. I think it's very valid.
Mr. Harris, I hear your concerns, and he comes from one of the most diverse cities. I come from one of the most diverse families. I have a black sister, and I have a black brother. I have nephews that are Hispanic. I have cousins that are Hispanic. So these issues are very, very important to me. And I want my sister to have the exact same opportunities that anybody here does. And I have to disagree. The Democratic Party has left the black community behind. It's facts. You look at Biden, for example, and what he says about, you're not black if you don't vote for me. Many people heard that as saying, we're not individual voices. You just assume you're going to get our vote. So there's a lot of issues, and a lot of it is government intrusion on minority communities. Wherever we look, we're jailing more minorities than anywhere else. Why is that? Because our system is designed to oppress minorities. My brother had a huge issue with the legal system, something I would have never dealt with as a white person, and I acknowledge that. He got put in jail. He couldn't even contact his family for weeks because there was a mental health issue, quote-unquote issue, and they put him in his isolated cell where they wouldn't allow him a phone call. Through my mother's advocacy, she continued to fight for his freedom, not just from jail, but from the oppression that she saw from that specific jail system. So it's a very real issue, and I hear your concerns. I wish we had more time to hear even more of those. Unfortunately, this platform doesn't allow for that. But it's real, and it's an issue. The Democrats have left you behind. The Republicans are leaving you behind. The government has created a system that's not working for minority communities. We have to do better. We have to start with listening, and we have to start with understanding what the issues are. So I appreciate you bringing up those issues. I really want you to look at the Libertarians and how we have a platform that creates a system that allows for equality for all, including, this is Pride Month, including homosexuals, trans, all individuals. If no one is free, then we don't live in a free community. We have to fight for freedom for all, or we're not fighting for freedom at all.
Janine, and then we'll come in.
As the only black woman in the state of Indiana that's running for a federal office. I'm proud of that. And I have to say that in the 6th district is about 92% white, and I was elected twice to represent the Democratic Party. In the 5th district, which I think is in Hamilton County, I think the numbers might even be north of that, we're also elected again. I'm going to show the Hoosiers in the state and the world, the nation, that I do believe that we have something special here. I'm like you, sister. Some days I have to tell you, some days I wake up and I just go about my business. I watch Hoda and Captain, what's her name, TV, just do my thing and have my coffee or whatever. But But then some days I go to the credit union and I get there and I've already called and asked a question about what I needed to do to add my daughter to the account. Get there and they see my black face and everything changes. And I know those days exist for you. Some days it's overwhelming. Some days it's overwhelming when I realize that as a candidate, I have to go to white media and ask them to cover me. I have to go to all these different things, all these different steps. And sometimes it is overwhelming. But at the end of the day, I'm gonna tell you what worked for me and worked for my family. And I believe this will go to work for the world because I'm a Christian Democrat. I just believe it. When you see yourself in the eyes of God, and the Creator, and the one who made you, I don't care what Joe Blow says, I don't care what this person, that person, or whatever says about me and my character. My dad told me to work my butt off. He told me that good people, all different colors, would help me if I worked hard, went to school, graduated, tried to do whatever it is that I possibly could. He instilled that into me and my 14 siblings, 12 sons and 3 daughters. We weren't a perfect family, but I tell you what, we had one child in 15 that went to prison for about 3 or 4 years. We called him Black Sheep of the family. And we called him that, Sheila, because guess what? He didn't quite get the lessons that my mom and my dad taught us. One of the things that I think is important to realize, oh yeah, so we were a black family, we grew up in Crawfordsville, but you know what? We had privilege that some other families didn't have. We had a mother and a father, and you don't need a mother. I'm not saying that you have to bind to the nucleus family, but you need to have a family that gives a damn about you from the day one.
Amen.
You need to have a family that believes in you, that will encourage you to do your best. My dad told me, he said, Janine, you got a pretty smile, and you got a sweet family. Do your best, but make it the very last thing that you think about. The reason why you're not getting ahead is because you're black. Maybe it's because you're behind, got late for work, and didn't show up. Think of every single reason, because that way that's going to push you further. Because the bottom line is, you do have to work twice as hard. You do have to be better than everybody else. That's just where we're at. But the bottom,
it's not fair to live
it's
an
not
entire
fair.
life that way,
No.
and to say that I need to be better than everybody else.
It's not fair.
You're almost saying that racism is not the problem.
No, I'm not saying that. You heard me say that. Please don't say yes.
Let's please, John, please don't interrupt. Allow Janine to finish her comment.
I really am almost done. But all I guess what I'm saying at the end of the day is, I know I said that. When I wake up, I can't change colors when I'm going places. I'm still brown, I'm chocolate. I like my color. But I'm telling you this, at the end of the day, the opportunities, we should be afforded the same opportunities everyone under the banner of the Constitution. But we can legislate some things. Even like what you said, Drew, about, thank God it's Pride Month and we move forward in some ways. But at the end of the day, you cannot legislate the heart of man. We can have all the books on the earth. We can legislate new laws every single day. But at the end of the day, it's who you are, how you're going to treat people. And I tell you,
all day.
we can legislate it all day. You can legislate it all day. It's not going to matter. At the end of the day, all I say is what I told my kids: do your best, and people will surround you. I believe that. If not, why would I wake up every morning?
You got my
So part of that question was about why don't we have people show up to vote, and why do we have elected representatives who don't actually represent us? That's the part of the question I'd like to address. We've just heard a lot of, or a little bit more partisan differences, and that's good. That's why we're having a town hall. But the good news is there's a solution that's truly nonpartisan and truly benefits all of us. Libertarians actually practice this at our conventions. It's called NODA, none of the above. Who here has heard of NODA, none of the above? Show of hands. One, two, okay, great. None of the above is an option on our ballots as libertarians. We can have candidate A, B, and C, and also none of the above. And the way the mechanism works is it says, why don't, let's take a step back. And what if we're wrong about how we think about people who don't vote, or why we have such a turnout problem? What if it's because people aren't inspired, just don't want to go to the poll to vote for whatever's on the ballot? I don't go to McDonald's if I want a steak. Nothing's going to force me to go to McDonald's if I want a steak. They just don't have what I want. And so, what if we see our turnout problem as a candidate problem? And what if we can change that by saying, you have another option. You can vote against everybody on that ballot. And that's what NOTA does. It gives you the power to vote against everybody there. If you've ever played cards and you don't like the cards you've been dealt and you say, shuffle a deck, I want a new set of cards, that's what NOTA is. It's truly nonpartisan. We can all use it, and we can all use it to hold parties and our government accountable to give us the candidates who will truly represent us. None of the above. No. Thank you.
I think we are actually at the end of questions, but what I'd like to do, rather than just leave at the end of that last question, is allow the candidates to have 1 minute to finish up, and then we'll conclude at that point in time. So actually, Jeff, I'm going to start with you. You have 1 minute. Say anything you want to say at this point in time.
This opportunity tonight is really the fundamentals of who we are as Americans. So I want to thank Drew and the Democrat Party and all the candidates here and all of you in the audience for coming together, big, bold, big, brave, having a conversation that's often uncomfortable. But really, this is who we are, and I'm proud to be here tonight. I wish our Republican opponents could have joined us, and I hope to continue to invite them. I certainly look forward to engaging in that conversation. From my perspective, the Secretary of State's office is truly a nonpartisan issue, and it is an office that serves all of us. This is how we agree to disagree. I've mentioned several different proposals that I have, concrete, tangible plans, processes that will actually secure your vote and your voice. And whatever your beliefs, whatever your policies, whoever your candidates, wherever your party is, these are tools to make sure that your voice is heard, your voice is counted, and that you can verify your vote to ensure all those things have happened. Again, my name is Jeff Moorer, M-A-U-R-E-R, and I look forward to having conversations with everybody after we chat.
Thank you, Jeff.
Okay, now we talked a lot about stuff, so you guys can go to my website, JanineLeeLakeForCongress.com. Tammy said hers is the longest name. I think Janine Lucas Lois Lee Lake might be. But that being said, go to my website. I am not the federal candidate that is going to spend all day doing call time. I'm not going to do that. That's not my makeup. What I'd rather do, instead of chasing dollars, is chase people to get them to register to vote. So like Destiny said, that people can show up and vote for the things that truly matter to us. The kitchen table issue is not about whether Nancy Pelosi is doing that in California or somebody else is doing something in Massachusetts. I'm talking about what's going on right here in Indiana. So that being said, my team told me to tell you this. Can you give $5 for the 5th district? Go to JanineLeeLakeForCongress.com. I don't try to get tons of PAC money, tons of big money. That's not what I'm about. I just don't have to worry about that. But I do need gas money. So if you can, like I said, go to JanineLeeLakeForCongress.com. We have an ActBlue, we have a Cash App, we got all the stuff, all the pay options. Give me a little gas money because we need it.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm James Seniak again. Thank you for coming. I love these conversations. Now we can have a two-way conversation. You can ask the questions. This is how it should work in politics. We should be able to come to the table and work together to find solutions. My fresh-minded approach to Washington, D.C. is just that, and I'm going to fight the still invasive and wasteful policies of Washington, D.C. Hoosier voices are not being represented right now in Washington. So I challenge you to look for the best option on your ballot. Look for the one who wants to represent you, the people, and come and hear your concerns. Today we have an opportunity to look at quality candidates. Listen to the voices and listen to what is going to represent you. We have to change voting. We have to change to get people motivated. More people are not voting than voting. And that's because they don't feel that their voice is represented. But we can change that, and we will change that this election. Thank you. My platform and other information can be found at www.seniacforsenate.com. I appreciate all of you, and if you guys want to come up after, I'll have a conversation as well.
I got one question, okay? I'm Ollie H. Dixon. I'm the father of Tammy Dixon Tatum. And I would like one question answered. Why? I appreciate all the speakers and the candidates, but why wasn't Tammy invited to this form?
I'll speak up. Honestly, sir, and as I said before the event, it was an oversight from the state party. We're truly sorry. I spoke with your daughter before, earlier this morning and also right before this event. And when we come back for another press event, she's our first call and she'll be a part of it. And again, it's no excuse to say sorry, but that's what it is, and I'm very sorry.
And Joe, I'm not trying to be controversial, but we knew about this, and there's some other individuals knew prior to this. That's not an acceptable excuse, okay?
Mayor McDermott, you have 1 minute.
You know, the Democratic Party over the years in Indiana has gotten used to losing. And when I first started as mayor, we didn't lose. We won in this state. When I took over as mayor, we had a U.S. Senator, Evan Bayh, we had a governor, we had the Speaker of the House, and the House. So it's not, is it impossible to win in Indiana? You have to have the right type of candidate that can win in Indiana. The type of candidate that can keep the base rallied, and the type of candidate that can get people to cross over and vote for that person. I think I'm that person. I'm a veteran, spent 6 years in the United States Navy, joined when I was 18 years old, enlisted. Worked my way through college on the GI Bill, went to the University of Notre Dame where I met my wife, who's now the judge of Lake County. I live in a diverse county, I live in a diverse city, and I do my best to represent everybody. I go out in public, I take a lot of crap, I get yelled at, I get disrespected. That's my job. If I'm your senator, I'm going to make mistakes. I'm going to do things that make you mad. I promise you. I won't hide like Todd Young does. Okay? I'm not going to say, hey, if you want to come listen to me, you got to drop $5,800. I won't do that. That's what our senators do right now. That's what our Congress people do right now. That's why they're not here. They don't respect you. And the only way to get that respect back is to go out there and vote against them in November, and to teach them a lesson, and all these problems we have with the supermajority will start going away once they see Todd Young lose. And when they see Holly Sullivan lose. And when we start winning seats back in this state, then all of a sudden, when Senator Lannon and Representative Austin go back, they're going to find a whole different audience. Because we got to prove we can win in Indiana, and you got the candidates. We can win. We just need to fire up the vote and go out there and do it. Thank you guys. I'm Thomas German. I want to be your senator, and I promise you every single day of that 6-year term, I'll represent all of you. Thank you very much.
And how long were you on a submarine?
I was on 4 years on the submarine. I was in the Navy for 6 years. I was on the submarine for 4+ years.
How did I know?
Thank you.
Well, let's proceed on off into candidates.
I drove further here than Janine, so wellsforindiana.com, you can give me this week, you caught me this week, and it was Memorial Day. And I would guess that maybe when I walk in, you don't think almost 20, coming up on retirement, Lieutenant Colonel. I've been doing this since I was 19. It was right after 9/11. Memorial Day was hard. Memorial Day was hard because I saw all the comments from Republican elected officials in the state of Indiana thanking us for our service, for protecting their notion of liberty. One in particular was Todd Rokita, that we fought and that some of my friends died to protect his notion of American exceptionalism. Not true. I did not fight so that I would come home and then hear somebody like Todd Rokita say I could be dying on a table in birth and that's just the way it is. We need devoted servants. I will continue to see you after this year, no matter how the race plays out. This is my life's work. It's all I know. And there are so many great Hoosiers running for office. And we just have to make sure that we fix the vote. And I want to be the person that fixes the vote for you. Not fixes it a bad way. That didn't come out right. It's been a long day. I almost had it. Last phrase, guys. You know what I mean.
I'm Joey Cole. I'd like to be your sheriff. I'm a people person. I'm a genuine guy. Those of you who know me, you know that I care about people and I want to be able to help people. I'd like to be able to serve you folks. I will do it proudly. I won't embarrass you. My door will always be open, and as I look around the room, most of you in here have my phone number, so for something you don't like, I'm not gonna be able to escape it. So, you know, I really would appreciate your support, and thank you very much for being here and allowing me
Okay, it's been a great evening, and I appreciate all the questions people have asked. Ladies and gentlemen, you've got a very diverse set of candidates. But you know, one thing is very clear. I think we all love this country, and we all want a better Indiana. We may have different ideas about how to get there, but none of us is a two-horned demon. The truth is, I'm running for state representative because I believe I can continue to be an independent voice for the people of Madison County. I work hard to represent the people of this district. I get out there, I go door to door, I raise my own money, I build my own campaign. I've always done it myself. There's nobody who can tell me what to do or how to vote. If you don't believe me, ask my husband. He will tell you. I care about every person in this district, regardless of whether they have a Trump flag flying in their yard, like the gentleman I went out to see 2 weeks ago, because I can't do a thing about his property taxes, but he was madder than hell about it, and he needed somebody to talk to. So I went out to talk to him about it, because he'd called 3 other elected officials and nobody would call him back. That's what it is our obligation as elected officials. Taxpayers pay our salary. They want to know that we care. We may not always be able to solve their problems, but they want us to listen to them. They want us to listen to them. They're working hard for their money, and they are barely keeping their heads above water. That's what they want to know. So I'm asking you to give me another chance. I love this job. I love the people. Thanks for coming up.